Hi, the Night Confession channel is with you. Welcome. On my channel, I talk about women's stories that my subscribers send me.
Part 1. The Crack. I always thought my family was a fortress. A husband, a son, a home, cozy dinners. It seemed nothing could shake this world. But cracks don't appear all at once. They grow slowly, out of small silences, exhaustion, endless everyday talks where there is no place for feelings. I noticed myself feeling emptier each day. My husband was there, but it seemed we were living parallel lives. He came home late, tired, irritated, and all he had energy for was the news and sleep. I tried to talk, to reach him, but it was as if he couldn't hear me. And then, one evening at a school meeting about senior projects, I met someone who changed my life. His name was Artyom, a guest lecturer in literature. Tall, with lively eyes and a calm voice, he immediately stood out. We spoke by chance, for just a minute, but his gaze lingered on me longer than it should have. For the first time in a long while, I felt like a woman, not just a wife and mother. That night, on the way home, I kept staring out the window, asking myself, why did that short conversation leave me with more warmth than an entire week in my own house? Part 2. Temptation. A few days later, I saw Artyom again. He came to the school to lead a literature club. I stayed to help the teachers organize the library, and he approached me. At first, the talk was casual, books, children, work, but soon it shifted. Life, dreams, what happiness meant to each of us. His attention burned. His words carried a sincerity I hadn't heard from my husband in years. He didn't rush, didn't interrupt. He knew how to listen. And I suddenly realized I was drawn to him like to a source of light my life had been missing. These meetings started to repeat. Random conversations in the school hallways, short text messages in the evenings. I found myself waiting for his messages with my heart racing, clinging to every word. My husband didn't notice the changes. He remained buried in work, and I felt invisible in my own home, but alive when near Artyom. At one of those encounters, he said quietly, almost in a whisper, "You're too beautiful to be sad." That phrase was the beginning of the end.
Part 3. The Edge. I kept finding excuses to be near Artyom. Sometimes it was school projects, sometimes asking for help with my son's literature homework. My husband never questioned it. For him, it was enough that I was busy with school matters. But I knew something inside me was changing. Each meeting with Artyom felt like breathing fresh air. We talked about books, but between the lines, there was more. Desire, anticipation, hints. He looked at me in a way no one had in years. I tried to keep my distance. I told myself, stop, this is wrong. You have a family, a child. But another thought immediately followed. And who really sees you in this family? Who listens? Who feels you? One evening after the club session, he stayed late. I was helping to put books away, and when he came closer, our hands brushed. That touch was stronger than any words. My heart started racing wildly, and for the first time in years, I wanted to forget everything. "If we cross this line," I whispered, "there'll be no way back." He didn't answer. He just looked at me, and in his eyes, I already knew we would cross it. Part 4. The Fall. Our meetings became a secret, hidden deep like a forbidden diary. I made excuses to stay longer after school events, and he lingered in the library more than necessary. On the surface, it looked innocent, but inside, it was already something far beyond friendship. We started meeting outside the school. First, it was walks through the evening park, then cafes on the outskirts of town where no one knew us. I was living a double life. At home, a wife and mother, and in those hours, a woman who felt alive again. I knew I was playing with fire. Sometimes at night, with my husband asleep beside me, I'd wake in cold sweat, thinking, what if he finds out? What if my son sees me as someone else, not the mother he's always known? But the more I feared, the stronger the addiction became. Arjo knew how to speak so every word sank into my heart. He knew how to look at me as if he could see all my hidden desires. One evening he said, "We've gone too far to stop now." And I realized the fall had already begun.
Part 5. The exposure. Autumn brought unease. Leaves covered the schoolyard. And in my heart, fear grew heavier. Every message from Artyom, every call felt like a flash of light in the dark, but along with it came the realization that the line between secrecy and truth was vanishing. One evening, when my husband came home earlier than usual, I didn't manage to hide my phone. He silently took it from my hands, scrolled through the messages, and I saw his face harden with every line. "What is this?" he asked, showing me the screen. I wanted to lie, to invent an excuse, but something inside me broke. I whispered, "It's true. I cheated on you." The silence was scarier than any scream. Our son stepped out of his room and froze in the doorway, not understanding what was happening. My husband put the phone down on the table, looked at me, and in his gaze was everything: pain, rage, disbelief. He didn't yell, he didn't hit, but from that moment, our home became cold, like an icy desert. We lived together, but as strangers, and that estrangement was heavier than any quarrel. Part 6. The collapse. Life turned into a slow collapse. My husband stopped asking questions, stopped arguing. He simply lived beside me, as if acknowledging my existence but never accepting it. Our son withdrew. I saw how he avoided looking into my eyes. At school, he grew quieter, at home, more careful. He sensed that the family he once proudly trusted was falling apart. And Artyom, his presence became a shadow. He spoke of plans, suggested, starting anew, but I knew we couldn't. Not because I didn't want to, but because I had already destroyed too much. One night, I sat in the kitchen staring at a cup of cold tea and realized I had lost everything. My husband, because he would never trust me again. My son, because his faith shattered along with our family. And myself, because I couldn't look in the mirror without feeling shame. The affair hadn't brought me freedom. It brought only emptiness. Epilogue. Almost a year has passed. My husband and I still live under one roof, but it's no longer a marriage, only a formality for our son's sake. Between us lies silence. My son is growing, stronger than I thought, but sometimes I see a question in his eyes he doesn't dare to ask. "Mom, why?" I write these words as a confession, so that maybe one day he'll read them and understand an affair is never a beginning. It is always an ending. The end of trust, the end of family, the end of oneself. I lost everything. And now all that's left is to live with this knowledge, step by step, day by day, hoping my son will one day forgive me, my husband, unlikely, myself, maybe never.
Thanks for your viewing. The best gift from you will be a like and a subscription.